whether you are napping at Yale in a dorm room or shopping at a Nordstrom store or just sitting inside a local Starbucks, smartphones and social media have really given the nation some insight into racial profiling that some African Americans endure on a basis that you wouldn't expect, maybe more regular than you would expect. My next guest's most recent article says these instances are another set of reminders of the challenges of being black in America. He joins me now, editor of Philadelphia's G Philly magazine, Ernest Owens. Ernest, good morning to you.
Good morning to you all, and thank you for having me on.
So first, let's start with why we are seeing these videos. Look, cell phone video, it's not new anymore. We've had it for about a decade. Social media, these platforms, we've had those for about a decade. But what we've seen over the last 12 months or so seems to be the spate of videos. Do you know why we're seeing so many now?
I think because people are finally realizing that, you know, unfortunately, black people won't be believed unless we have video footage. And we're seeing people share this on social media at rates that are unprecedented. And unfortunately, there's a bittersweetness to it all. You know, in some sense, this is the proof that many people, specifically white people, have needed to understand decades of ongoing racial profiling in this country. And in some sense, it is, you know, bitter because once again, we have to endure you know, black trauma porn. I'm personally, as a 26-year-old black gay man who has been throughout my entire life profiled, am disgusted and basically terrorized by seeing these images, these ongoing images of black and brown people specifically being targeted by people who are carrying out acts of white supremacy as if it is, you know, something that is routine and cool and hip.
You talk about having to provide proof, and I want to just pull up a line from your piece on CNN.com in which you write, listen to black people and give their experiences the same level of belief you would give others who don't have to provide such traumatic documentation to support their claims. And I wonder, is the outrage, the sympathy, the remorse that some will feel for these specific instances and interactions, is that transferable to other people who will share their story but don't have video proof?
Well, what we're seeing is that there are many people who have shared these experiences. Personally, I was stopped and frisked at my alma mater, the University of Pennsylvania, when I attended there back in 2010. And when I told some of my white peers and my colleagues what was going on, a lot of them basically said, you know, they couldn't believe it, as if I would lie about those experiences. And people have a problem with listening and believing black people without us having to show tweets and pictures and images. So unfortunately, what we're seeing is the media is basically picking up on these images and sharing them. And for some people, it takes that for them to believe it's real. Look, unfortunately, we live in a society where you know, black people are not given a proper humanity and respect, and that requires trust and belief in their experiences, even though we have had centuries-long documentation and proof that there is racial disparity in this country, and yet for some reason we're still doing, you know, show and tell in 2018, which is despicable.
All right, I want you to listen to Kelly Fife Marshall and Denisha Prendergast. They are two of the three who say they were racially profiled last Monday when they were leaving an Airbnb in Rialto, California, and a neighbor called police because she said she was scared after they didn't wave to her. Listen.
So once the sergeant came, the mood and the energy changed completely. He didn't believe anything we were saying. He didn't believe the Airbnb app that we'd shown. He didn't believe the landlord that we had called and the picture we were shown. They called the landlord and got a DMV picture, and they showed it to us, and we all agreed, yeah, that's her. And the sergeant said, but of course they would say that. And so at that point, it just felt like everything was against us.
I didn't feel served or protected in those moments.
Is there any evidence that police departments across the country are taking into consideration the videos we're seeing, the stories that come out after all of these, and I guess change their degree of empathy and in involvement with people who are the subjects of these calls to police for simple things as checking out of an Airbnb, taking a nap in a dorm room, that they're changing based on what we're seeing and hearing repeatedly?
Unfortunately, I don't think so. You know, we have seen officers across the country have evidence that they have hidden, they have just thrown out, not taken into consideration. And unfortunately, what I want to also note is that people are saying, white people use it. We've under this idea that they're in fear, but I don't think there's fear at all. I think that people are taking advantage of the disparities of distrust in the criminal justice system, and this is a hate crime. Black people are innocent, and in many ways, when we see these types of routine acts of napping and humane acts of sitting at a Starbucks without purchasing something for 2 minutes, what we're realizing is that there are white people that are yielding and leveraging their white power and their privilege to basically create these acts to terrorize black people. And if you notice this whole idea of I'm going to call the cops, that is to incite fear. And it's a way to leverage this power and a way to terrorize black people, which in my opinion is a hate crime. And I think that this is an act of, automatic hate that's targeting people based on their race without any merit, without any proof. And we have to really start talking about what are the repercussions for white people who choose to abuse their privilege in ways that will wreak terror and harm on other people in marginalized communities, especially those who are innocent.
We also
that is the conversation.
We also have to remember that there is not a single rule for every black person or every white person, which I think these videos highlight. And so it's impossible to brush any single race, black or white, with one brush.
If we notice the pattern, no one's making generalizations, but we have to look at the pattern of behavior.
I hear you on that. I hear you on that.
These things are happening, and people are put in positions where they're vulnerable.
We are low on time
and
here. I just want to
make sure. And the violence has to stop, and the double standards have to stop. And yeah, no one's thinking that. But when we talk about white supremacy, it's very clear that that is a one-way street. There's no both sides to white supremacy. Black people cannot be racist in the same way that white people can't yield power.
That wasn't my point. That white supremacy is a one-way street. Listen,
but can you agree that people using and abusing the systems of police misconduct is in many ways an act of white supremacy? Like people calling the police on black people that are innocent and racially profiling
Here's
them,
what I'll do.
That is clearly a pattern of behavior.
I will tell people to go to CNN.com and read your piece so they can get more of your opinion there. All right, Ernest Owens.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.
All right, we are now hearing from Sarah Sanders, White House press secretary, regarding a statement that Rudy Giuliani said to the Huffington Post that has a lot of people wondering what's going on. First of all, let's listen to Giuliani here. He said in the Huffington Post, whatever lobbying was done didn't reach the press. He's referring to the AT&T merger possibility. He went on to say he did, meaning the president, drain the swamp. The president denied